G'day everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm playing a bit more with the dragon scale or veining effect, and today I thought I'd give art resin a go. It's a 1-to-1 epoxy resin. I'll be using 3 transparent colours today. One will be by Colour Obsession and it's an epoxy tint in Pacific Reef Blue, and I also have 2 Just Resin epoxy pastes, one in Phthalo Blue and the other is Turquoise Basics, and I'm not sure if I'll use that yet. I'll decide later. My 2 pigment powders, which are opaques, are by Rez Expressions. One will be Bright Gold, and the other is White Satin. I want these coasters to have a sea theme, and my lovely son has used his 3D printer and printed me 4 little creatures to pop in. I'm just going to put on my respirator and my protective clothing and mix my resin, and I'll be back in a sec. I'll be mixing up my dark colour first, which is the first colour that's going to go into the bottom of the coasters, and I have 160 mils of mixed resin in the cup, so approximately 40 mils will go into each coaster. The first colour is this Just Resin pigment paste in Phthalo Blue. I don't want to use the same stick that I stirred the pigment paste with when I first opened it this time. I'm just using it to drizzle the colour in. I do decide to use the Turquoise basic pigment paste as well and add a drizzle of that. I often find the Phthalo Blue and the Turquoise mixed together give me a beautiful deep sea green colour that I kind of love. Then I use a separate stick to thoroughly mix the resin, scraping the sides and the bottom and incorporating all the colour. And I'll lift it up just to check the colour. If I'm not happy, I might add a bit more of one or the other, but this looks beautiful to me. And as I live near the Great Barrier Reef, it reminds me of the reef colours. Next, I'm on to my Colour Obsession Pacific Reef Blue, and I'll need less of this colour, so my cup will have 120 mils of mixed resin, which will be approximately 30 mils of colour in each coaster. This one I add, I think 20 drops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, there you go. Give this a good stir, and as I'm stirring it I think this might be too pale. My creatures, I'm wanting them to look like they're in a bit of a deeper water, so I decide to drizzle in a bit more of the pigment paste in Turquoise Basic and give that another stir, and then I'll check the colour on my stick again, and I'm happy with this. Rightio, it's on to mixing up the Rez Expressions pigment powders. The first one I'll be mixing up is the Rez Bright Gold, and I'll use just a small amount on the end of the popsicle stick in 20 mils of mixed resin, which will give me 5 mils of mixed colour in each coaster. And the satin white, or the white satin, I'll be using just a little bit more on the popsicle stick and putting it into 40 mils of mixed resin. So I'll have about 10 mils of mixed colour in each coaster. When you're mixing pigment powders, always have your respirator on. They are really fine particles and you do not want them in your lungs. There is another way of mixing in powders that works quite well, and it doesn't get them puffing up so much when you stir them, and that is to pour a bit of the resin in the bottom of the cup, put your powder in, put more resin on the top, and then stir. I've put the pigment powder on top of the mixed resin, so I start slowly. I scrape the powder down and into the resin from the sides, and as I can see it's getting more incorporated, I go faster, scraping the sides again and mix thoroughly. You need to mix epoxy powders or micas much more thoroughly than you do a paste or a tint. On to the fun part now. First colour goes in, which is the Just Resin Phthalo Blue and Turquoise Basic mix. I start by pouring in a puddle into the centre of each coaster and then continue around and top them up, just eyeballing them as I go, trying to get approximately the same amount in each. I'll use my craft heat gun on a low setting and go around each coaster. This helps it soften so I can move it around with a popsicle stick and also pops any little bubbles. When you're moving resin around in a mould with a popsicle stick, don't push it all the way to the bottom or you can damage your mould. You just sort of skim it across the top and pull the resin where you want it to go. Before moving on to the next colour, I've noticed there's some fluff or hair on the surface, and I'm just using a sewing awl to gently skim the surface and pull them out. If you don't have a sewing awl, of course you can use a pair of tweezers or a skewer. Now I'm pouring in the Colour Obsession Pacific Reef Blue with a small amount of Turquoise Basics by Just Resin, and I don't use all of the colour this time. I think I've used about 3/4. Next in goes the Rez Expressions Bright Gold, and I try to use the same amount in all coasters, and I use all of it. Each time you pour a little puddle into the centre, it pushes the colours you've poured before out towards the edges. After the gold, it's the white satin, or satin white, I can never remember which one it is. And I use all of this, pouring into the centre again, further pushing the colours out towards the edge. The pigment powders are more dense or heavier than the epoxy pastes and the pigment epoxy tints, and as they sink through the other colours, they'll pull everything back towards the centre. In goes the last of my Colour Obsession Pacific Reef Blue with the Turquoise Basic. Final step is to pour clear mixed resin into the centre on its own. I think I'm using about 20-25 mils in each coaster. That's more than I did in my previous dragon scale technique video, which I shall link above if anyone wants to have a look. And the hope by using a bit more of the clear is that when it pulls back into the centre, it will leave me a clear spot still and not fully close up, so that you'll be able to see my little sea creatures when I pop them in. To pop any of the little surface bubbles, I use my craft heat gun and quickly move over each coaster, not leaving the heat in one spot and not going to the edges too much, otherwise you confuse your resin to your silicone. I also use Isopropryl Alcohol and give the coasters a quick spritz all over. This breaks up the surface tension and allows any deeper bubbles to come to the surface and pop easily. Art resin has a working time of about 45 minutes. It's now 40 minutes since I started mixing my resin, and this is how they look now. You can see the gold and the white have already started to drop through, and the circle of clear is closing up. At the hour mark, I put my little sea creatures in, and as you're about to hear, I made a mistake and I haven't pressed the button hard enough, and this is what it sounds like when you have a respirator on. Oh no! I did need to make a second set of coasters the next day, so I did record this part anyway for you. All I do is I pick it up by the end part. You have to sort of think in reverse, so your front part needs to go in first, and I aim it down towards the bottom of the coaster in the clear area and gently push it in till I'm at the surface top without touching it with my fingers. I then use my sewing awl, or you could use tweezers, and gently, slowly push it all the way through to the other side of the mould. Back to the ones I'm completing today. All 4 of my sea creatures are now in the centre of my moulds. You can see that the gold and the white rings have now disappeared, as they are the heavier colours and they are sinking through the transparents. I'm hoping that as the colours pull back in towards the centre, as the powders sink through, that they won't completely close up. I've left these covered up with a food tent, and it's now 4 hours later, and I've popped in to have another look. You can't see the gold or the white at all. Thankfully, you can still see the sea creatures in the middle through at the centre part. The clear has closed in a bit, but I'm hoping it won't go any further, and when we demould tomorrow and turn these over, that the sea creatures will be able to be seen from the other side. I cover them again with the food tent overnight to stop any dust or hair getting in, and we'll come back in the morning and have a look at how they went. It's the next day now and I'm ready to unmold. This part always makes me a bit nervous. You never know what you're going to get on the other side, and this technique changes every single time I do it. Okay, let's have a look. Here's number one, which is a manta ray. I can still see it from this side. Oh wow. Oh wow, I really love it. It's exactly how I thought they might turn out, so that the sea creature looks like it's sort of swimming through the water. It's really quite beautiful. I tried it up against the light to see how it looks, and I really love that effect as well. On to the second one, which is the little dolphin at the top right. The gold and the white powders are sunk all the way through. I can still see the dolphin through this one as well, so I'm hopeful it'll be like the manta ray on the other side. Here we go. Yes! I'm impressed with myself. This is gorgeous. I love it. So pretty. The gold and the white pigments make them sort of shimmer in the light as well, which you can't really see on my video. I went to take out the bottom left and then I decided to take out the little turtle on the bottom right. I love turtles. So out he comes. He's also visible from this side. Then I turn it over. Oh my gosh, he's turned out too. I am so loving this technique. Lastly is the little hammerhead shark on the bottom left. Again, I can see him quite clearly through here. It looks like there's more clear on this one. Oh wow. These have turned out exactly how I hoped they would. I hope this tutorial has helped somebody. Please give me the thumbs up and consider liking and subscribing. Also leave me a comment, good or bad. Thanks for watching everybody and have a great day.